Hey everyone. I hope you are enjoying your day, and it's time for another fabulous session of learning from a girl and her dog coaching and consulting. So let's get started. All right, I'm going to share my screen with you and talk to you a little bit this week about resilience. Now, resilience is something that has come up for me this past week in regard to a couple of different situations that I've been dealing with. And I really have been thinking about the difference between being a strong woman and a tough woman. And in my own opinion, I think that there are so many of us that are strong and we don't even know it. And I think the difference is having that resiliency, having that grit, the perseverance to keep going when things are hard. Now, I look at things like being a tough girl as being tough. You're tough. Maybe even you're in a point where you've put these walls up around you because you've learned that you have to be that way and keep people away from you or from getting inside because of circumstances that may have happened to you. Those are the women that I see as tough girls. And sometimes we all can, exhibit that trait. I know there are times when I'm around people that have maybe done me wrong in the past. I'm a little more hesitant about moving forward with those people or getting involved with those people. And then I think about the strong woman. And I think when you become that strong woman, you not only have that toughness about you so that you can determine when you need that, but that doesn't become your whole purpose. Your purpose is that you know when you need that, you know when you need to provide love and caring and kindness, but you also know exactly what you want and you're able to provide yourself with the perseverance to keep going. So today, those are just my thoughts, but today I wanted to talk to you about that resiliency and living life as a strong woman. All right, so here we go. So I wrote a chapter in an anthology this past summer, and it is an international bestseller, and I think it's pretty phenomenal. The book is called Unleash Her, and in my chapter, I talk about how so many times life hits us, and we have two choices. And because life is all about having a choice, right? So we have two choices. Choice number one, we can just let life hit us and we can react by just doing whatever life brings to us. Or we can make the choice, life hits us, but we keep going after our goals and dreams. So, in particular, I think the first time that I realized this, I was 19, I was young, and I had become a young mother, had my daughter, and I still had goals and dreams that I wanted to pursue. Now, most people in my circle, family, friends, people I grew up with, would say, okay, you had a baby. Well, you have to get married. Now you're just going to have to take a job, any job here in our hometown. And you're just going to have to deal with the circumstances that you're not going to be able to keep pursuing your goals and dreams. And for me, it was to finish college and get the teaching job I wanted and eventually keep moving forward in my career. And I just couldn't just lay down and let life take over. I still kept moving forward. And so I think that's the first time when I realized we have choices. Life, that's really what life is all about. But I started to build the resiliency, the grit, the perseverance, because even though we have choices, some choices are going to be easier than others. And for me at the time, that choice was very difficult. I was working a full time job. My ex husband was working two jobs. And, I didn't get to see our daughter as much as I wanted to because I was also going to school full time. And my schedule, y'all, was pretty crazy. I would work from 6 to 2 each day. I would come home on Mondays and Thursdays. I would shower, get her settled, and spend some time with her. And then I would take her to either my in-laws or to my own parents, so that I could head to school, head to class, and I would go to class until 10 p.m. and then I would have to drive home. So it'd be about 10:30 when I would get home. And of course, she'd be asleep because we'd start all over the next day because she had to be at the babysitter by 5:45 so I could be at work at 6 o'clock. And it was very challenging. And that took me 2.5 years to do that. And I missed out. I missed out on moments and I missed out on time. So when I did have time, I wanted to spend all of that time, making up for that and spending it with her. And then still juggling everything else that you have to do, because I did eventually marry her father. And, I wanted to build that relationship, and we bought a house and I wanted to decorate it and keep it clean and, do all the things that you do as a family and exercise and enjoy life. And, it was a choice I made. I chose that, but it was not simple. And that's when I had to learn how to be resilient and have that grit and have that perseverance, even when times were hard. And I write about it. And one of my favorite parts that I wrote about, I say this: looking back, this was the most challenging time in my life. But I went back to exactly what I knew: grit, perseverance, and the belief that life would once again feel and be normal. And surprisingly, I actually learned, and then I had the freedom to design life how I wanted it to be. And that phrase, that little blurb, kept coming up over and over within my chapter, because each time that I had to make that pivot and realize that life was hitting me and I had to dig deep to do that, I had to keep digging deep to do that. And those were the things that I kept remembering, that I was learning, and that because I put in that resiliency and that time and that work, I was able to design this life that I love. And it really did build me into the strong woman that I am today. Now, having her at 19 was not the only time I had to do hard things, then realizing that once I was teaching and I wanted to go back to school, that was difficult. And balancing all of that, because now she was starting middle school, and kids, I always say, lose their mind when they go to middle school. And then after my divorce, when I was learning to be single for the first time in my whole life, that was another period of time. And then, of course, when I really kind of finally said, I have to take control of my whole life, and not letting the divorce and everything that was just coming at me as a middle-aged woman take over. So let's talk about resiliency for a little bit, because that's what we're really here for today. And as I was looking it up, because I like to do my research and I want to make sure that I'm giving you accurate information, I found a website with a definition of resiliency from the American Psychological Association. And they say, resilience is the process and outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustments to external and internal demands. And again, that's from the American Psychological Association. So let's dig into that a little bit. So it's a process and an outcome. So it's the work you put in where you successfully adapt to difficult or challenging life experiences. So we all know when we've had these life experiences, right? Because they stay in our mind for years and years and years. And we really have to think about our mental, emotional, and our behavioral flexibility and adjustments. So that's what I really want to really focus on, because when you're going through these hard times, I know people who say, gosh, life is just always hard for me. I never can catch a break. This is not fair. I should just give up. And then there are people who say, wow, I've been moving along quite well, and then boom, this hit me out of nowhere. How am I going to adjust my emotional, mental, and behavioral responses to this thing that's happened? so that I can keep moving forward, so I can overcome this, so that I can still get to the outcome on the other side that I want to get to. And, it's all about that strength, that inner strength within us, I think. And then having the practice, maybe the skill to have grit and to persevere when things are hard. I've spoken before, Facebook Live, or in live speeches or blogs or anything I've written or spoke about before, how it took me some time to get to a point as a mother where I gave my daughter the gift of the productive struggle. I grew up with a mom that just wasn't real fantastic and wonderful, and my life was difficult. And so when I did become that mother to her, I wanted to give her everything. I wanted her to have this fantasy life, I think, or this fairy tale life where life was just always great and grand and she never had to worry about anything. And what I found, and it took me a while to get there, she was 20, and it was when the divorce happened that I realized that I had been doing just way too much for her. She had recently gotten to a point where college wasn't working out for her. Now her father and I were divorcing. She's an only child. She always knew us to be together, and life was different. And she had a hard time adjusting. And I have to put some blame on me, because when life was hard growing up, I was always there to fix it. And I never gave her opportunities to problem solve on her own, or opportunities to make decisions one way or the other. Of course, now the exact opposite with my mom, I had to make all my decisions. And if they were bad, well, then I just had to deal with consequences. So I quickly learned that I didn't want that for her. However, I didn't want to just do everything for her either, because she wasn't learning how to be gritty, how to persevere when things were hard. So I had to give her that gift of that productive struggle. And I really think that that's something as parents that, that's one of our responsibilities. And I define that as letting our children, and I do it at the school as well with the students, letting our people struggle a bit, make decisions, and if they're great grand decisions, celebrate with them, and if they're not, support them in a way that they can figure out when the decision is not appropriate or the correct one or the best one for them, to be able to get to the other side and to a better decision. It sounds very complicated, but I think that by doing that, I have then taught her, now at the age of 32, she's able to problem solve through life experiences so much better. And if we as adults have never had those opportunities, and we just give up and we just roll over, so to speak, and let life happen, then that's going to be really hard to learn how to persevere when things are hard, and how to develop that resiliency. I know that life is just real, right? And I'd like to be able to say that we're all going to wake up tomorrow and win the lottery, and then we'll have no problems for the rest of our worlds. But that's not the way it is. And we're going to have half of our time in life where things are going well, and half of our time when things are not going well. And even for that person who says, life always happens to me, I never can catch a break, if you really dig down deep, I know you're going to find that you've had some good times in life as well. So I know that there are 5 pieces to this. And again, just going in and looking through research that I did online, this one came from the feelinggoodmn.org. And they say resiliency is made up of 5 pillars, or 5 characteristics: your self-awareness, your mindfulness, your self-care, your positive relationships, and your purpose. And when I go back and think about the times where I had to really dig deep and be that strong woman and keep persevering and find my grit, I have to say that these things were characteristics that I really had to utilize in my own world. self-aware. I had to know what things I could handle on my own, where I needed help, what I needed help with, and then how to find that help, how to find that support, know where my strengths and weaknesses were, be aware of where I am in the world and what I can handle. Mindfulness, just being mindful of every single piece. When I was going to college and working through being a teenage mom, I had to think about everything one step ahead. I had to ensure that I had childcare. I had to ensure that I balanced my time between school and work and with her and with all the different pieces. And then this self-care piece, not forgetting to take care about yourself. We can jump into things so hard and get so involved. And then we wake up and realize, like what happened to me this past November, now I got sick. I hit the wall. And it took me a long time, about a month, to really recover. I had gotten to a point where I had run my body down. I was so tired. I was so overwhelmed. I was stressed. It was the holiday season, which also puts extra stress on. And the climate changes a lot back and forth in Houston during that time. And my allergies were just out of control. Well, what ended up happening is my body wore down and I got a sinus infection. I didn't have COVID or the flu or bronchitis or anything like that, but it was a sinus infection and it was pretty severe. And I just couldn't get myself well. And that's not typical for me. But then I stepped back to say, oh my gosh, well, girl, no wonder you've been wearing yourself out. You've been working 2 full-time jobs, basically. You've not been giving yourself any self-care or very minimal self-care. You're not sleeping. You're grabbing food on the go. You're not eating as well as you do. And your workouts have changed. You're not as strong as you've been in the past. So it's a real thing. It really happens. And you need to, and of course, for anybody, self-care is whatever is best for you. But for me, those things were important to my body. I needed that. And my body told me, okay, if you're not going to provide us with these pieces, then we're going to shut you down until you do start thinking about your health again and what is right for you. And then the positive relationships, because when things are hard, think about it. It's hard to keep a positive mindset. It's hard to be able to say, this is going to work out. We think about, oh my gosh, all this stuff is coming at me and I'm so busy and I'm so tired and I'm so stressed. But keeping those positive relationships, not just with yourself, but with the people around you who will support you and keep you going. Right now, I'm working on starting this side business. And it's hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I have fear, I have doubt. I'm learning every single day. And some days I'm learning from mistakes. It's coming at me and it's different than what I've ever experienced before. And what's the hardest and what's very difficult to be able to keep persevering is when someone says, I just don't know if you can do it. I'm worried about you. What happens if? Okay, that I get it. I get that you're having those feelings. I'm having those feelings too. But trying to stay as supportive as possible and trying to stay as positive as possible with me is what I really need at this time. And anybody who's going through a difficult situation, that's what they need as well. And then finally, remembering your purpose, remembering your why. Why are you putting in this extra hard work? Why are you wearing yourself down? Why are you not letting life just hit you and take over? You have a purpose, you have a reason, you have a purpose. And remembering that is going to give you that sense of perseverance and grit and help you get to the other side. I promise. So let's talk about some ways that you can keep working toward your goals, even when life is hard. How do we become strong women? How do we become resilient? How do we keep going? So I have a few notes for you, and I want to talk about those with you. So one of the things is making connections and making connections with the right people, and not necessarily just one type of person. So if I think about who I have in my circles, I have my family, I have my work people, so my colleagues. I have my employees. I have my networks, and I have different networks because I have a couple of different businesses right now. For my coaching and consulting, I'm in a networking group in the area. I have networking groups online with people from all around the United States and all around the world. And then with my independent beauty consulting, I have a network there too. I have a team that we all support each other and provide opportunities for each other and supports and ways to learn and grow. And so it's thinking about those. And then I just have my social circle. And these are people that I don't want to have to think with. They're my friends. They've been my friends for years. I just want to go out and have a beer with them or drink a glass of wine with them and talk about life, not necessarily talk about school and not necessarily talk about the businesses. So I think that having those connections and thinking about the best connections for you is always super important. I like this one. I think that we have to realize that life is always going to have some crises, right? Things are going to happen. It's not always going to go our way, but we have to see those as not the end of the world. When they happen, they're just things that happen. It's not personal. It's not, we're just seeking out Sherry and we're just going to have the lightning strike down on her. But it's just, life happens. And it's because of our actions that these kinds of circumstances happen, right? And so when we have a crisis, again, our actions are going to determine how we handle that. And that's going to be dependent upon our thoughts and feelings, just like my coaching formula says. And when you think about that, you have to see it as it's not like just because you have a crisis, your life is over. You can keep going and you can get past the crisis. I also love this one because I talk a lot about comfort zone and making change and feeling stuck, but change is just part of life. Change is going to happen. And either we're going to pursue change or change is going to find us one way or the other, right? Just like me having to make a change with my self-care in November. I didn't make the change, so life made it for me. And then keep moving towards your goals. This is one that I've spoken about quite a bit as well. Just because you might have to make, a little adjustment or a little pivot doesn't mean you're not going to be able to accomplish the goal. I set a big goal for January for myself with my business. I didn't make it. But what I did do is I started taking steps toward it. I'm about halfway there, which at the beginning of January, I was 0% there. So I'm making steps. I had to make some pivots, but I learned from what I had to pivot on and what didn't work so that I can keep moving forward from there. And then take decisive actions. And that, to me, really and truly, that just means act on purpose. You make the decision. You believe in you. You make decisions to act and then just do it. You might do it scared. You might do it before you're fully prepared, and that's okay. Just act. Don't just sit and wait. I see that happen so often. And then, of course, look for opportunities to learn in all of this. And that's exactly what I do every single month. I stop and I reflect on my goals. And even when they're not going well, and I feel like I'm overwhelmed and can I really do this? I look at the things that have not gone the way I want. And I look at what did I learn from it? And then how do I make it better? And then, of course, keep everything into perspective. And don't forget to give yourself a little grace. When we keep life in control, so to speak, into our perspective, it's not going to get totally overwhelmed. And then give yourself the grace. Keep your self-image, as a high standard, your view of you. Because just because things happen doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you're incapable of something. So this week, as I talk about resilience, let's just go back to the screen and let's just wrap everything up because it's just so important. It is truly one of the most important pieces of being a strong woman, in my opinion. So remember, resilience really is, let me moved myself all the way here. The outcome, the process and the outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustments to external or internal demands. So if we really think about that definition, there are 5 pieces or skills that we have to build in ourselves to be able to persevere, to have the grit, and to be resilient. And that is our own self-awareness, our mindfulness, our own self-care, because that's super important, our positive relationships with ourselves and with the people in our circles, and then remembering our why. So how do we build the resilience? So these are my biggest takeaways for today. And I hope that you can really think about these, but make your connections. Avoid seeing crisis as an unsolvable problem. Everything has a solution, one way or the other, I promise you. Accept that change is part of life. Keep moving toward your goals. Take action. Don't just stop. That's really the only time when you can guarantee that you will fail, is when you stop. Look at all things as opportunities, learning opportunities especially. Keep a positive self-image and keep things into perspective. And overall, don't forget to give yourself a little bit of grace. So once again, I'm Sherry, and I'm with A Girl and Her Dog Coaching and Consulting. And I will say that I love doing these little blurps with you each week. I hope you're finding some of it beneficial. I kind of do them on the fly. It's really about what I've been thinking about for the week or an experience that I've had. And I just want to share it with you because I can speak to you about things I know, and I know things if I've experienced them. Now, I do have more support systems and more programs if you are at a point where you think, maybe this girl kind of knows what she's talking about. Maybe this girl could help me be my very, very best. And so if you are interested in coming on board with me or even just getting some free advice, if you go to my website, findagirlandherdog.com, you will find a link to my calendar, and you definitely can book a free coaching call with me. And then we can see if we want to move forward. Now, during that coaching call, of course, I'm going to talk with you about where you are in life right now and provide you with some strategies to help you take that first step forward to building a life you love. But also, you may find out that you really love talking with me and spending time with me, and I may love talking and spending time with you. And if that's a mutual feeling, then of course we have some programs that we could build each other with and get you to really live a life that you love, that you want to wake up to every single day. Because I'm on a mission to help as many women as I can with all of my coaching, my programs, my podcast, my blog, my written work, and just to continue to have an impact on the world. I've had an impact in public education, working with students and teachers, and now I want to be able to provide women with the support that I always wished that I had as a young adult, as a middle-aged woman, and now as someone in her 50s, because that's what it's all about, building each other up and supporting each other. So thank you for spending time with me this week. Again, I hope that these little sessions are helpful for you, and I will see you next week. Have a great rest of your week.